Welcome to Renegade Frequency. Please hit like and subscribe, thank you. Settle in and let your imagination roam free. As we journey into a world shrouded in mystery, whispered about in folklore and both feared and revered throughout human history. We are venturing into the realm of witchcraft. What image does that word conjure in your mind? A gnarled crone, cloaked in black, cackling over a bubbling cauldron? A malevolent figure casting curses under a pale moon? Or perhaps you see a benevolent healer, a wise woman with an intimate knowledge of herbs and nature, a guardian of ancient traditions. For centuries, the figure of the witch has been a powerful, mutable archetype, representing everything from profound wisdom and rebellion to diabolical evil. At the heart of this complex identity lies a seemingly simple yet profoundly significant division: the distinction between the white witch and the black witch. This is more than a mere matter of magical color coding. It is a story about ethics, intention, power, and perception. It's a narrative shaped by religion, societal fears, and cultural evolution. To understand the difference between a white witch and a black witch is to understand the very journey of witchcraft itself, from its ancient earth-honoring origins to its vibrant, diverse, and often misunderstood presence in the modern world. Join us as we trace the threads of this magical tapestry, exploring the origins of the craft, the seismic shift that demonized its practitioners, the rise of a benevolent counter-image, and how today, witches of all paths are reclaiming their power and rewriting their own stories. This is the tale of two witches, a story of darkness and light, and the vast, nuanced gray that lies in between. Part 1. The Ancient Roots. Before black and white. To find the source of witchcraft, we must travel back in time, far before the pointed hats and broomsticks of popular fiction. We must go to a time when humanity's relationship with the world was one of immediate, intimate connection. Our ancestors lived by the rhythm of the seasons, the cycles of the moon, and the pulse of the earth. The world was alive, imbued with spirits and unseen forces. The wind whispered secrets, the rivers held ancient memories, and the forests teemed with powerful energies. In these societies, from the frozen steppes of Siberia to the verdant lands of Celtic Europe, there were individuals who were believed to walk between the worlds. These were the shamans, the cunning folk, the seers, and the healers. They were the earliest incarnation of what we might now call a witch. Their craft was not defined by good or evil in the way we understand it today. It was a practice of balance. The shaman who journeyed to the spirit world to retrieve a lost soul for a sick villager was performing a vital community service. The wise woman who knew the precise combination of herbs to ease childbirth or mend a wound was a respected and indispensable figure. The village elder who could read the omens in the flight of birds or the patterns of stones was a crucial guide, helping the tribe navigate the uncertainties of life. Their magic was practical, born of necessity and deep ecological knowledge. A charm might be woven to ensure a successful hunt, a poultice created to draw out infection, or a ritual performed to ask the land for a bountiful harvest. Was this white magic? To them it was simply magic. It was life. Of course, this power had a dual aspect. The same knowledge that could heal could also harm. The herb that soothes in small doses could be a poison in large ones. A curse intended to protect the village from an enemy could be seen as a malevolent act by that same enemy. A shaman might be called upon to weaken a rival tribe or bring ill fortune to a thief. But this was not black magic in the diabolical sense. It was a reflection of the harsh realities of existence. Nature itself is both a gentle provider and a ruthless destroyer. The same sun that ripens the grain can scorch the fields. The same water that quenches thirst can drown. The magic of these early practitioners mirrored this natural duality. Their power was a tool, its morality defined by the context of community survival and the preservation of balance, not by an abstract, cosmic war between good and evil. The concept of a pact with a singular ultimate evil entity simply did not exist in these polytheistic and animistic worldviews. The witch, in this primordial form, was a mediator of nature's raw and untamed power in all its creative and destructive glory. Part 2. The Shadow Falls. The Forging of the Black Witch. The world began to change. Empires rose and fell. Across Europe and the Near East, a new force was gathering momentum: monotheism. The rise of Christianity in particular would irrevocably alter the perception of the witch. The old ways, once seen as sacred and essential, were now viewed through a new dualistic lens. There was one God, and anything outside of his sanctioned power was, by definition, demonic. The polytheistic pantheons of the Greeks, Romans, Celts, and Norsemen were not simply dismissed. Their gods and goddesses were systematically rebranded as devils and demons. The horned god of fertility, like Cunning, a symbol of the wild and the virility of nature, was twisted into the image of Satan. With this theological shift, the village-wise woman was no longer a healer tapping into the earth's energy. She was a heretic drawing power from the devil. The shaman was no longer a spirit walker, he was in league with demons. The entire practice of folk magic, divination, and herbalism was reframed as maleficium, the Latin term for wrongful, harmful magic. This ideological transformation laid the fertile ground for what would become one of the darkest chapters in European history: the Great Witch Hunts. Spanning roughly from the 15th to the 18th century, this period of intense paranoia and persecution saw tens of thousands of people, mostly women, accused, tortured, and executed for witchcraft. The key document that ignited this firestorm was the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches, published in 1487 by two German churchmen. This book was a terrifyingly detailed, misogynistic treatise that served as a guidebook for witch hunters. It codified the stereotype of the Black Witch that haunts our collective imagination to this day. According to the Malleus, a witch was not merely someone who used magic for ill. A witch was someone who had made a formal pact with the devil, renouncing their faith and dedicating themselves to evil. They were believed to attend nocturnal sabbats, where they would engage in blasphemous rituals, orgies, and cannibalism. They flew through the night, consorted with demonic familiars, and used their powers for one purpose: to cause chaos and suffering in God's world. They were blamed for everything from failed crops and sick livestock to plagues and impotence. The Black Witch was born not from actual practice, but from fear. She was a scapegoat for societal anxieties, a projection of religious dogma, and a tool for social and political control. The accused were often marginalized individuals: poor widows, eccentric elders, midwives whose knowledge of childbirth was seen as a usurpation of God's will, or simply people who fell afoul of a powerful neighbor. Under duress and unimaginable torture, many confessed to the fantastical crimes invented by their accusers, further cementing the myth of the diabolical Black Witch in the public mind. This archetype was entirely divorced from the reality of folk practice. It was a caricature, a monster created by theology and fear. And for centuries, this monstrous image was the only image of the witch that was permitted to exist. Part 3. The Light Returns. The Conception of the White Witch. As the fires of the witch hunts slowly died down and the Age of Enlightenment dawned, the belief in literal, devil-worshipping witches began to wane among the educated elite. But the archetype did not disappear. Instead, it began to splinter and evolve. The figure of the White Witch emerged as a popular character in folklore and literature during the 18th and 19th centuries. She was the antithesis of the Malleus Maleficarum's monster. If the Black Witch was evil, the White Witch was good. If the Black Witch cursed, the White Witch healed. If the Black Witch made a pact with the devil, the White Witch often drew her power from God, angels, or nature in a way that was seen as benevolent and morally upright. This White Witch was often called a cunning woman or a charmer, and she fulfilled many of the same practical roles as her pre-Christian ancestors. She was the village healer, the finder of lost objects, the teller of fortunes, and the remover of curses. Curses often believed to have been cast by a Black Witch. This created a clear magical dichotomy. One type of practitioner caused harm, and another was sought out to fix it. The rise of spiritualism, theosophy, and ceremonial magic groups like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in the late 19th and early 20th centuries further refined this concept. These movements were fascinated by esoteric knowledge and hidden powers, but they sought to divorce them from diabolism. They created complex systems of magic, often distinguishing between a higher path of spiritual evolution, white magic, and a lower path of selfish material gain, black magic. However, the most significant development in the modern story of the White Witch came in the mid-20th century with the birth of Wicca. In 1954, a retired British civil servant named Gerald Gardner published a book called Witchcraft Today. He claimed to have been initiated into a surviving pre-Christian witch coven. While the historical accuracy of his claims is heavily debated, the religion he presented, Wicca, would become the single most influential force in modern witchcraft. Gardner's Wicca was a nature-based, life-affirming religion. It centered on the worship of a horned god and a triple goddess, the celebration of seasonal festivals, and the practice of magic. Crucially, it had a clear ethical framework that stood in stark opposition to the malevolent stereotype. The core of this ethic is the Wiccan Rede, which states, "And it harm none, do what ye will." This simple phrase is the philosophical cornerstone of modern white witchcraft. It posits that personal freedom is paramount, but it must be exercised with the caveat that one's actions do not cause harm to others or oneself. This is often paired with the law of threefold return, the belief that whatever energy a witch sends out into the world, positive or negative, will be returned to them magnified by 3. With Wicca, the White Witch was fully realized. She was no longer just a folk healer, but a priestess of a vibrant, organized religion. Her magic was not a tool of evil, but a means of personal growth, healing, and connection with the divine. She was a conscious and powerful reclamation of the word witch, stripping it of its demonic connotations and reinfusing it with wisdom, reverence for nature, and ethical responsibility. Part 4. A Tale of Two Crafts: Intent, Ethics, and Practice. So, let us place these two archetypes side by side. What truly separates the path of the White Witch from that of the Black Witch? While the labels themselves are simplistic, they point to a fundamental divergence in philosophy and intent. The core distinction is intent. For a practitioner who identifies with the white path, the primary intention is healing, growth, protection, and empowerment, all within an ethical framework that seeks to harm none. Their magic is constructive. They might cast a spell for a friend to find a new job, perform a ritual to heal emotional trauma, create a protective ward around a home, or simply celebrate the turning of the seasons to attune themselves with nature. The focus is on alignment, harmony, and positive manifestation. For the practitioner who embraces the black path, the philosophy is starkly different. Here, the central focus is on the self. The primary intention is the acquisition of power, control, and the satisfaction of one's own desires, regardless of the impact on others. This path does not recognize ethical constraints like the Wiccan Rede. If harming someone is the most direct way to achieve a goal, then it is a valid option. This is where we find the magic of hexes, curses, and coercive spells designed to dominate the will of another. It's a path that often involves working with destructive energies and darker entities. While popular culture equates this with devil worship, for most modern practitioners of so-called black magic, this is not the case. They are more likely to follow a philosophy of self-deification, seeing themselves as the ultimate authority in their own universe, unbound by conventional morality. This is a core tenet of paths like Levian Satanism, which is atheistic and uses Satan as a symbol of individualism and rebellion, not a literal deity to be worshipped. Their ethics are, therefore, diametrically opposed. The White Witch operates from a place of karmic responsibility, believing their actions will return to them. The Black Witch operates from a place of radical self-interest, believing that personal will is the highest law. This difference in philosophy is reflected in their practices. While both may use similar tools, candles, herbs, crystals, incantations, the application is different. A White Witch might use a rose quartz crystal in a spell for self-love. A Black Witch might use the same crystal in a coercive love spell to bind someone to them against their will. A White Witch might light a white candle for peace and protection. A Black Witch might light a black candle to absorb and direct negative energy towards an enemy. It is crucial to understand that these labels, white and black, are deeply problematic and often rejected by modern practitioners. They are seen as an oversimplification that reinforces a dualistic, Christianized worldview that many witches actively work to dismantle. Few people who practice harmful magic would actually call themselves a Black Witch. The term is more often an accusation than a self-proclaimed identity. Conversely, many who practice benign magic may simply call themselves a witch, Wiccan, pagan, or practitioner, finding the white label to be unnecessary and a bit self-congratulatory. Part 5. The Modern Witch. Beyond the Binary. Today, we are living through a new renaissance of witchcraft. Fueled by the internet, social media, feminism, and a growing desire for spiritual autonomy and connection to nature, countless people are discovering and defining their own magical paths. And in this new landscape, the old binary of black and white is becoming increasingly obsolete. The modern witch is a diverse and multifaceted figure. She might be a kitchen witch, finding magic in the hearth and home, brewing healing soups and baking intention into her bread. He might be a green witch, an expert herbalist whose practice is rooted in the garden and the wild forest. They might be a cosmic witch, aligning their rituals with astrology and the movements of the planets. They might be a hedge witch, practicing a form of shamanism, crossing the hedge between the physical and spiritual worlds. Many modern witches recognize that life itself is not black and white. They practice what is sometimes called gray witchcraft. This is not a middle ground between helping and harming, but rather a pragmatic and morally complex approach. A gray witch might believe that sometimes harm is necessary for the greater good. They might cast a binding spell to stop someone from causing harm to others. They might perform a curse to return negative energy to its source, seeing it not as an act of aggression, but of justice and self-defense. They understand that magic, like any form of power, is a complex tool that requires wisdom, discernment, and a deep understanding of consequence. The internet has been a revolutionary force in this evolution. Where once a seeker had to hope to find a hidden coven or a dusty book, now a universe of information is available at their fingertips. Websites, forums, and social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram are filled with witches sharing spells, rituals, and philosophies. This has led to an explosion of creativity and personalization in the craft. It has also allowed marginalized communities to find a spiritual home in witchcraft, with queer witches, BIPOC witches, and feminist witches all shaping the craft to reflect their unique experiences and political realities. For many, witchcraft is a form of empowerment. It is a way to reclaim agency in a world that often feels chaotic and oppressive. It is a spiritual path that honors the divine feminine, respects the earth, and places the ultimate authority for one's life squarely within one's own hands. Conclusion. The Witch in the Mirror, the journey from the ancient shaman to the modern TikTok witch, is a long and winding one. We have seen how the witch has been revered as a healer, demonized as a fiend, and reclaimed as a symbol of rebellion and wisdom. The archetypes of the white witch and the black witch are powerful storytelling devices. They represent the eternal struggle within ourselves and our societies, the choice between creation and destruction, healing and harming, community and selfish gain. But in the end, they are just labels. They are masks placed upon a practice that is far more ancient and nuanced than any simple binary can capture. The true essence of witchcraft does not lie in the color of a candle or the wording of a spell. It lies in the one place no one else can ever truly see: the intention within the practitioner's heart. What is a witch? A witch is a person who consciously works with the unseen energies of the universe to create change. The morality of that change is defined by the witch themselves. Power is just power. It is the hand that wields it that chooses whether to build or to break. So the next time you hear the word witch, perhaps you will look past the stereotypes of good and evil. Perhaps you will see a long and complex history, a diverse and evolving spiritual path, and a potent symbol of personal power. And perhaps you might even see a reflection of the magic that resides within us all, the power to choose our intent, to shape our reality, and to decide for ourselves what path we will walk in this magical, mysterious world. Thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and have a good day.